All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 12th, 2018 Westminster City Council meeting. At this point, I would ask you please to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Parker, would you take the roll, please?
Atchison.
Here.
Byrd. DeCambra. DeMott.
Here.
Pinter.
Here.
Seitz.
Here.
Scully.
Okay, for the purpose of council, I would like to move a motion for the purpose of excusing Councilor DeCambra, who is still on maternity leave, Councilor Scully, who is out of town on business for her employer, and Councilor Byrd, who is at a meeting at the state capitol this evening. Could I have a second to the motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Next item on the agenda will be the approval of the minutes. At this time, Ms. Pinter, if you would.
I move that the City Council approve the minutes of the October 22nd, 2018 meeting as presented.
Is there a second to the motion? Ms. Seitz?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. We will move on to presentations. I have representatives, I believe, from both chambers. Mr. Moss, I know I saw you. Mr. Kaiser, there you are. Well, the purpose of the presentation tonight is to thank both of our chambers of commerce and also to recognize that we're in the midst of shop local, shop small throughout the city of Westminster, and we want to encourage you to spend your money here. We love your tax dollars. Please don't give them to our neighbors. We'll spend them more wisely than they will. So shop and buy everything in Westminster. But part of what we do each year is try to make sure that everyone is aware that we do have a support for our small business groups. Take an opportunity to work with both of our chambers as they represent all of our businesses here in Westminster, and to make sure that we have an opportunity for you to talk to them after the meeting. If you have any questions about either chamber, and both these gentlemen will be glad to stay here. They're here all night if you need them, especially if you join them. They have to stay here all night. So let me start with the proclamation that we're providing. Whereas the government of Westminster, Colorado celebrates our local small business and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 28.8 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99% of all business with employees in the United States and are responsible for 63% of net new jobs created over the past 20 years. Whereas small business employ 48% of employees in the private sector in the United States, and whereas nearly 94% of Westminster's businesses are small business who create jobs and spur economic growth. Whereas on average, 33% of consumers' holiday shopping will be done at small, independently owned retailers and restaurants. Whereas 91% of all consumers believe that supporting small, independently owned restaurants and bars is important. And whereas 76% of all consumers plan to go to one or more small businesses as part of their holiday shopping. Whereas Westminster, Colorado supports our local businesses that boost our local economy and preserve our neighborhoods. Whereas advocacy groups as well as public private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I hereby ask the Mayor of the City of Westminster, Colorado, do hereby proclaim November 24th, 2018, Small Business Saturday. Residents of our community and communities across the country to support small business and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year, signed the 24th day of November 2018, Westminster, Colorado. We are signing it early, so it's not. Greg and Sean, thank you both for coming in, representing both our chambers. And if you have any comments you'd like to make, Absolutely. But not for me.
No, I'll go for it. You know, as the mayor mentioned, 94% in the city of Westminster are classified as small, typically under 5 employees. Of that 94%, a little over a third are retailers, perhaps even more. So you can understand why it's so important to shop small on Saturday. Most of these retailers will tell you that they bank on this time of year to go into the black, which is why we call it Black Friday, and why it's so important to support them on Saturday and, of course, throughout the holiday shopping season all year long. But we'd like to draw special attention.
We'd like to thank the city and the partnership that we've had with Small Business Week. Especially right now, we're kicking off our sweepstakes. $5,000 for shopping local and shopping small. Partnership.
Thanks
very
a lot,
much.
Council. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Darn, I thought we were going to get you down there. Okay, so we don't have any 20. Stay down there. As much as we love giving away proclamations, we like giving away money even better. So, Officer Timothy Wright, would you please do me a favor and bring the lovely family with you? All of them. That's it? All right. Would you tell us who you brought tonight?
My wife, Christy.
Welcome. Thank you for your. Well, this is a part where we typically like some members of the family, and some members are not quite as happy as others. We don't get much. Tonight we are honoring Officer Wright, 25 years of service. Part of what we do at the 25th year is a $100 check for each year of service, which I will pass to you. That's what I thought. Tim Wright joined the police department in 1993. Across his 25 years of service, he has worked as a field training instructor, a miscellaneous crimes detective, burglary detective, and is currently assigned to the patrol division. In all of his roles, Tim is consistently recognized for the quality of his work, the effort he invests, and the strong rapport he builds with his co-workers, supervisors, the DA's office, and other law enforcement agencies in the metro area. Tim and Christy have been married for 26 years. They're incredibly proud of their daughter Abby, freshman in her freshman year at Wheaton College in Illinois. Abby is a great student and a very talented competitive basketball player. In his spare time, Tim loves spending time with his family and friends. Anything else you'd like to add? Huh? Thank you very much for loaning us your husband. We appreciate him very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tim Wright, 25 years of service. Thank you. And Tony Fico. Tony, you have any members with you? Well, bring them all down.
Sure. This is my beautiful girlfriend Stephanie, my oldest son Gianni, my youngest son Tanner, and my baby girl.
Welcome all of you. Hold that. Thank you. So tonight we're honoring Tony Fico, who started with the city 25 years ago as a maintenance worker in the street division, filling potholes, cleaning storm drains, shoveling asphalt, and plowing snow. Over the years, Tony was promoted to Equipment Operator 1, and then again to Equipment Operator 2. With a strong desire for career advancement, Tony moved to Street Division and joined the city's Community Development Department and Engineering Division to take on the challenge of traffic technician. Anything that's wrong with the traffic, you call Tony. Don't call us. Tony's got it. After years of handling traffic-related issues for the city, Tony was given the opportunity to become an engineering construction inspector, the position he holds today. Tony lives life to the fullest during his free time. You can find him picking things up and putting them down over and over at the gym, cruising around in his cool rod.
1930.
Model A pickup. Or simply enjoying time with his family and friends. And Tony, as we did with the last gentleman that was up here, he got to hold the check for a few minutes. Maybe you'll get yours a little bit longer. This is working out really well. So, again, Tony, thank you very much for your service and family. We thank you for loaning it to us on a daily basis. Congratulations. You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Keeper.
Thank you, sir.
Can I get, it's Deputy Chief, right? Kim Barron? Your title isn't listed on here, but Deputy Chief Kim Barron, can you please come forward? And your family, come on. Everyone come down to support her. Would you like to introduce your guest?
This is my husband, Tim, and he's a former Westminster employee.
Pleasure to meet you, Tim. So this is my absolute pleasure to present this award to you, Kim. Kim Barron began her career with Westminster as a police officer trainee in 1988. Since then, she has served as a senior police officer, patrol sergeant, traffic sergeant, communications assistance for law enforcement act accreditation manager, that's a mouthful, patrol commander, Patrol Services Commander, and Neighborhood and Support Services Commander. And I think I got your title wrong. Are you Commander or?
I used to.
But you are Deputy Chief. Yes. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Seems like an important title to be listed here. It is our Deputy Chief. She has held collateral assignments as a DARE officer, background investigator, liquor enforcement investigator, firearms instructor, K-9 sergeant, K-9 commander, and peer support team coordinator. In October 2017, Kim was promoted to the position of Deputy Chief of Police. Kim has received several awards and recognitions during her police career, to include Police Officer of the Year by the Optimist Club, congratulations, Teams in Action Awards, and Prescription Drug Task Force Educator of the Year as a DARE officer. Kim loves the Lord Jesus Christ. Second only to that, she loves spending time with her family and friends, doing landscaping projects, tending to her flower garden, and volunteering her time to help others. Thank you so much for your 30 years of service to the City of Westminster. As a mother of a 7-year-old daughter who flirts with the idea of being a police officer, it is wonderful for her to have a role model like yourself. So I would like to present you with a certificate. Thank you. And I apologize, I didn't see that.
So, can I ask the people who are going to receive the proclamation for the Law Enforcement Records Personnel Week, please come up?
I know there's at least 5 of you.
I was going to say,
Come on down, guys.
why don't we go ahead and start on this end, and you could go ahead and introduce yourself to the group here.
Okay, I'm Ann Cloyd, and I'm one of the police record supervisors.
Veronica Nicholas, and I'm going to be your records tech.
John Lovis, record tech.
Vince Catalano, record supervisor.
Debbie Sinicki, records technician.
Katie Goslin, records tech.
Rhoda Kyle, support services administrator.
So I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of background on this proclamation. On November 5th, 2018, Governor John Hickenlooper proclaimed the week of November 5th through November 9th Law Enforcement Records Personnel Week. It's the first year that this type of proclamation has been made in Colorado since the governor's proclamation was made on November 5th. This meeting is the first opportunity that we have to basically do one of these proclamations. And so obviously these folks support all the people you actually see out in squad cars, and they're very, very important to what actually happens in law enforcement, making sure that crime is held accountable for. So that's basically the background of this. I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation. Whereas law enforcement records personnel are crucial to assisting law enforcement agencies in identification, pursuit, capture, and processing of suspects, and whereas these professionals continually use their expertise and experience in maintaining criminal justice, agency records, and statistics in providing data for improving apprehension strategies, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and committed personnel who staff law enforcement records is material influenced by people's attitude and understanding the importance of the work they perform, and whereas law enforcement records personnel serving the city of Westminster have exhibited professionalism, efficiency, and compassion during the performance of their essential duties in the past year, and whereas Westminster citizens are encouraged to recognize our city's law enforcement records personnel for their valuable contributions to law enforcement community. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Herb Atchison, on behalf of the entire City Council and staff, do hereby proclaim the period of November 5th, 2018 and November 9th, 2018 as Law Enforcement Records Personnel Week in the City of Westminster, and join in honoring the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our citizens and its city and citizens safe. So, and it's signed on this date, 12th day of November 2018. So thank you all very much for what you do. Thank you.
Congratulations, guys. Appreciate it. Very much. All right, normally this is a point of the agenda where we would move to open communications, but we're going to delay that for a few minutes. We have had a lot of news and misinformation being distributed around the city over the last 4 or 5 days that has to do with potential of drilling around the Stanley Lake area and the Westminster Hills Dog Park. So we're going to address this one item before we open it up for public comment. So if some of you came here to publicly comment on that, I want you to have the information as to where we are at today and what's actually going on. So Mr. Tripp, I'll turn the first part of that over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I do that, I want to recognize the staff that were mentioned here tonight and received proclamations and recognition for their service to the city. These are really representatives of a really fine employee group we have here, and thank you for your service. And also mention on this Veterans Day that we have a number of employees that have served in the military and are serving in the military, and we thank all those folks for their service. And thank you for allowing me to open with that. I'm just going to have a brief comment. From the moment, Mayor and Council, that we knew as a staff that there was a pending application in and around Stanley Lake, we've been working on this through multiple departments in a cross-functional way to try to figure out what actually had been submitted and what the status of it was, and to do whatever we possibly could. And along the way, we have attempted to keep the public informed through our web channels, and we'll continue to do that. But I thought I'd ask Deputy Jody Andrews, if you make some comments specific to the activities of my office in the last week and a half or so. As you know, I was at National League of Cities last week. Jody was acting city manager, and Jody's been working with legal counsel, Frankel, and other city staff in addressing this issue, this very, very important issue. So, Jody, if you would please, I'd maybe give the folks here on council and the public a little background as to what we've been doing.
Thank you. I'll just offer a few comments tonight, some of those covered by Mr. Tripp. But really just starting with when major issues strike a community, they can come swiftly and they can bring lasting impacts. And that's exactly what's happened here in Westminster over the past week and a half as the issue of drilling and fracking, especially on public lands, hits home. This is an issue I think that many of our residents did not think would hit us quite the way it has in the last week to two. When we first learned that an energy company had applied for permits to drill under Stanley Lake and the Westminster Hills Dog Park, we were very surprised. The city was not aware of, nor had it been involved in, these applications in any way. Stanley Lake serves as a water supply for 300,000 people in this area. In addition, the Stanley Lake Regional Park serves as a vital wildlife refuge and is home to nesting bald eagles. Westminster Hills Dog Park is a 420-acre open space jewel, attracting dog lovers from all over the North Metro area. The idea of drilling under these important public lands raised immediate concerns about the impact this could have on the quality of life of our residents, and we quickly moved to address this at the staff level, and I assure you that that will continue and is continuing. Following our residents' activation and the early work of our staff, we received some good news last Thursday that the permits for drilling under Stanley Lake and our dog park were being withdrawn. We believe this is a positive development, but it does not change our commitment to remain fully engaged in this issue and aggressively continue our work. I want to acknowledge the effort of our city staff who have been working tirelessly since these issues arose, and the support of City Council as we have worked to find answers to the many questions these applications have raised. The staff team put together for an issue like this spans many departments and areas of expertise: our City Attorney's Office for legal advice and guidance, our Public Works and Utilities Department for infrastructure and water supply and quality, our Community Development Department for land use, our Parks, Recreation and Libraries Department for parks and open space, and our regional partners who share a direct interest in our infrastructure, our water supply, and our open spaces. In support of all of this is a concentrated communication that we've begun to keep our residents informed, which is very much a work in progress as we work hard to get answers to our questions. I think like many of our residents, we don't have those yet, but we are working very hard. We'd wish we had more progress today, but the offices involved were closed for Remembrance Day. That work that I just described does not end with the withdrawal of these two applications. In fact, it is just the beginning. We are aware that there are other applications that may affect our city, our residents, and our resources, and we are taking a hard look at those ones. And so the effort over the past weeks will continue and intensify. There's an item on tonight's agenda to bring in more legal expertise to help us understand more about the impact of this issue on our community and aggressively take actions to preserve and protect our most valuable resources. And to all of you from our community that have activated and have come out to speak, have gotten involved, filed your comments on those application sites, thank you. It made a big difference. We were able to get the application date extended and ultimately and quickly 2 of those applications withdrawn. So thank you to all of you who were involved in that, and we look forward to hearing from any of you who came to speak tonight on this issue.
Thank you, guys. Let me also preface this. Social media is not necessarily the most accurate place to report things. We've had a lot of accusations that the city is issuing permits. Ladies and gentlemen, the city does not issue those kind of permits. That is at a state level. The problem is that we found out about this very late in the process, but we have been working everything, and I would tell you every mayor that is in both Jefferson and Adams County that comes anywhere near touching the Stanley Lake area met last Friday. We are going to continue to meet with our staff as we try to pursue what options we have. This is a very important piece and it affects the lifeblood of our city, and that being our water supply system. I would ask you please refer to the website, to the information we're putting it out. Our staff will keep you updated as we determine what is and what is not factual. And we will put that out to you as fast as we can. Part of that process is, as Jody mentioned, is we're going to be bringing in specialized legal experts to help us understand what our rights and privileges are. But again, please be careful with what you see on social media and how you repeat that, because it becomes a bigger problem when misinformation is given out. Please refer to the city website. That's where your most factual information will be found. Moving from there, the next item on the agenda will be the citizen communication. This is a period of time where people who have an item that they'd like to discuss with us or present to the city, there's a period of time of up to 5 minutes. When you come forward, I have a list of people who have already signed up to speak. I will call you up. When the green light comes on, your time starts. When the yellow light comes on, you have 1 minute left. And when the red light comes on, your time is up. We'll ask you to stop at that point. First person I have is Mr. Tom Lowe.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Tom Lau. I've been a resident of Westminster for 13 years, raising my family along the Big Dry Creek open space just to the east of Stadley Lake, and we love the area. So first of all, I'm pleased that those permits were withdrawn. I appreciate all the work you're doing. I encourage you to continue to fight for that. As you noted, this is probably the start of a fight, not the end of it. And I think it's a shame that a company from over in London, the UK, is trying to affect our homes, our families, our schools. It's just a shame. My second point is I'm very concerned about the remaining 3 permits out in the Rocky Flats area. We all live downwind of Rocky Flats, and our drinking water is downwind of Rocky Flats. So no matter what happens around Stadley Lake, what happens in Rocky Flats will affect us. And so hope we continue to organize, hope we continue to fight, not only drilling around Stadley Lake and Big Dry Creek and out in Rocky Flats. My third point is simply to ask, what can we do to help? What can I do to help? This is, came to us as a surprise last week. Many of us commented on the website, went door to door, knocked on our neighbors' doors, asked everyone to comment. What else can we do to make sure that this does not affect our community and our children? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Linda Grable.
Hi, my name is Linda Graybeal. I live at 6504 West 95th Place over in the Trendwood subdivision. And I'm here on behalf of the Westminster Historical Society, specifically for Linda Charrington. And I know you all know about her passing, but I've come in her place just to say thank you to the city that she loves so much. When I just counted up how many volunteer hours she gave to the city, it's over 55,000 hours of her life she gave to this city as a volunteer. That's huge. And I feel very inadequate to even do a quarter of what she has done for this city. And so I close with what was in our newsletter, putting together some of her famous comments over the years. If she were here right now and she could speak to you, she'd say, I have finally graduated from being the oldest I've ever been. If you want to do anything for me, then love and enjoy your family. Be careful to record your history, both within your family and within your community. Bloom where you are planted, even if you're older than dirt, because that's just what you do. She says thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Melissa Case.
Hi, good evening. My name's Alicia Casey, and I am with a group called Candelas Glows, and we work to inform the community about the dangers that exist at Rocky Flats. First, I want to say thank you to the City of Westminster for posting the public comment and on the fracking proposed at Rocky Flats. But I do want to say this morning the website was inaccurate as it was saying public comment was closed. We do know that 2 of those permits were withdrawn for Westminster Hills and Stanley Lake. 3 still exist on the land at Rocky Flats. So, and those comment periods are open through a few closed November 30th and 1 closes December 5th. So I want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. But I'm also asking that the city, and I heard your comments, so I really appreciate the continued commitment to opposing the fracking that's going to be taking place there. What we do know about the cleanup at Rocky Flats is that when they were remediating the site, they buried most of the plutonium processing buildings in the ground there. These were buildings that were too contaminated to be removed safely. So that's what still exists there. And so when we think about fracking in that area, I don't know that that's responsible land management or land use when we talk about the earthquakes and different impacts and side effects that can happen because of fracking. What we also know about the cleanup at Rocky Flats is that the Department of Energy that manages the Superfund site at the very center, they prohibit any disturbance of the soil, especially anything that's impacting below 3 feet, because when they remediated the land, the first 3 feet they allowed up to 1,000 picocuries of plutonium dust in the soil, but below that there is no limit to how much plutonium can be below in the soil. So disturbing that with pads that would be installed out there, as well as regular maintenance and removal of the gas or oil or whatever it is that they're fracking for out there, would not, again, be irresponsible land management. We also know that the flood of 2013 compromised the containment cap that is on the Superfund site over those buildings. At that time, no testing took place on the refuge to determine what may have flowed off the Superfund site into the refuge as part of that flood. And we also know that as part of the Superfund cleanup, no remediation of any of the plutonium took place in the wildlife refuge. No one is denying the elevated levels of plutonium that are out there. The EPA will tell you that they're higher there than they would be in other areas. CDPHE has come out and said, here's how much plutonium's in the field right behind the houses at Candelas. But again, I just implore everyone to be mindful and cautious that with a half-life of 24,000 years, the danger of what's out there is not just going to evaporate. That said, we also are planning a public meeting this Thursday at 5:30 at College Hill Library. The public is invited to come and hear from COGCC about the fracking plans that are happening there, and then we'll also hear about the dangers of fracking, and then also be hearing about some of the dangers that remain in the land at Rocky Flats from former FBI agent John Lipsky, who raided the plant in 1989. And thank you so much for your time.
Ronald Booth.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Thank you for this opportunity. First and foremost, I'd like to express my appreciation to the employees that were honored here tonight, as well as the city staff and all city employees. It makes me proud to call Westminster my home. I've lived here for nearly 2 decades now, and there's no place in the world I'd rather be. And I'd also like to express my thanks to the City Council and particularly the staff for the timely communications once they discovered the situation out at Stanley Lake and the dog part, as well as at Rocky Flats. And I would like to acknowledge the wisdom of the council in enlisting the aid of an attorney specializing in the gas and oil industry to help provide advice and counsel in this matter. I think we all know that Proposition 112 was soundly defeated. Most of us understand that if it weren't for the oil and gas industry spending tens of millions of dollars to launch a campaign of misinformation, distorted information, and even some outright lies about their activities that fed into underinformed voters, that if that hadn't happened, 112 likely would have passed, and we might not be standing here today. One of the most significant deceptions, I think, was the supposed job loss, which, all of us, we need our jobs, we want good paying jobs, and that alone, among many other things, is grossly overstated, as well as the potential economic impact on the state as a whole and the impact of our schools. But I think, you know, and I'm going to apologize. I realize the format here formally is to address the city council, but in a public forum like this, let's be honest, we're also addressing our fellow citizens. And what many people here tonight and many people in our community may not realize is that to a large degree, the heating and cooling of this very building is augmented by geothermal energy, which exists right outside that wall between there and 92nd Ave. And I feel it's important to point that out because, you know, we see the windmills and they're cool, waving in the breeze, and we see the solar panels on people's roofs and the solar farms that are helping reduce threats to our environment. But geothermal energy sources are little talked about, and they're invisible to the passing public. So I'd love to see the city maybe consider putting some solar panels on the roof of the building to power a sign that advertises that this building is a greener building than most in the community. And the wonderful thing is that where jobs are concerned, and you know, I care deeply about the jobs of the folks in the oil and gas industry, and I know a good many of them live right here in our community. But the interesting thing is where geothermal energy is concerned, and I'd love to see the city actively promote any business that's related to geothermal energy moving into our community, because the very skills and technologies that are used for that sort of green alternative energy are very similar to the same technologies and skills that are used in the fracking industry, but without the dire consequences. Ultimately, we're all downwind. We're all downstream, and we're all down the street from each other. So much though we take pride in our independence, when one tiny thread, much less a fracking operation like what the folks with whatever the name of the company is, it escapes me now, we're considering, that doesn't affect just us and the 300,000. It affects our planet as a whole. And I was excited tonight to hear that staff in the city's already reached out to our neighboring communities, because I think it's imperative in the face of the fact that the COGCC has never once denied a permit anywhere in this state, that whatever actions we can take to protect precious resources like our water supply and our air and our children in their own backyards and in the schools, it's imperative. And I greatly appreciate the fact that staff's taken those measures already. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council and the community at large. My name is Michelle Lewis. I have been a community member since 2002. My community also represented Federal Heights. It also represented Thornton. I'm a business owner in this area, but I love Westminster. But I do want to share with you a certain instance that happened on the evening of October 26th. We lost our little dog to another coyote attack. We live in the Asbury Park residential area. We've lived there since 2002. I do not have small children anymore. Our poor little dog was attacked beyond 6-foot fences, around the perimeter of our home. Luckily, we are very attached to our community, not only through the Nextdoor app, but through community events. I am very, very impartial to Stanley Lake High School. I'm also an administrator of an area hospital. Before these coyotes attack our small children, we need to take a look at the coyote wildlife expansion. The coyotes are protected and my little pug was not. And that is a problem. We all discussed as a neighborhood about coyote fence rollers. We've discussed gun control. We've discussed you've got to stay around your little dogs 24/7. I want to be safe in my own backyard at dusk, at dawn, before dinner, after lunch, on a break, if I play hooky from work, if I'm taking home a Papa Murphy's pizza. I want to be safe in my own backyard. I have a puppy who was my 9-year-old dog's little friend. He's a puppy. He's 14 months old. And I can't keep him out of my sight. This is Westminster, Colorado, and I implore you to take a look at the wildlife control of these coyotes in our area before they attack our small children. Thank God I don't have grandchildren. But we do need to take a look at our coyote control around the railroad tracks. We have beautiful, beautiful outdoor protected land, but these wildlife measures are beyond controlled. Please, and I implore you, a public announcement, a public hearing to take a look at the health of these animals. And please take a look at the protection of these animals. What are we protecting? I want to be safe in my backyard. I want to be safe in our parking lot. I want my neighbors' children to be safe. I love the city of Westminster. Please take a look at the safety of our wonderful community. Thank you for your time.
That is everyone I have who had pre-signed. Is there anyone who has an item they'd like to bring forward to the council that did not sign up? I've got about 3 of you whose hands went up. So for the record, when you come down because you didn't sign up, I need your name and your address.
My name is Fred Cook, and I'm one of the property owners of the Orchard Lakes subdivision, which is all the property south of the Orchard Shopping Center, where the Marriott is, where Centura Health is, and we've been the developers of that property for going on 2 decades. So what I'd like to thank council to start with for the opportunity to talk to you. And we've been working with staff for a number of years on the development of our property, and it was about just prior to 2013 when the most recent comprehensive land use plan was adopted. We had reached agreement and passed with the city a new comprehensive land use plan along with our preliminary development plan that allowed all the zoning and uses for our property. Now, under the current land use plan, we have a condition whereby a significant portion of our property is zoned and it conflicts with the current comprehensive land use plan that is in place. And it does not allow the majority of our project to move forward and be developed. At the time this plan was enacted, we had no involvement in the process of changing our property's land uses that had a significant impact on our development. And if given the opportunity to provide input, we would have opposed the 2013 comprehensive plan amendment. That is why I'm here today, to make sure that changes are not made to the comp plan that would not afford us the opportunity to voice our opinions and participate with staff in drafting those changes. The city recently commissioned an economic and market study for our development and surrounding properties. It is my understanding, even though we have been afforded the ability to review a copy of this report, that this study shows that the current comp plan was not viable in today's market and needed to be revised. And that's the basis on which the city is moving forward with the new comp plan revision. We have had a number of developers and users take a run at buying some of our property, but either due to the development constraints or use restrictions placed on the property by the city, no one has bought our land other than Centura Health, and they bought a small portion of it. We now have the ability to correct the past mistakes by enacting a new comp plan and designated the infrastructure that will support the new plan and uses that we're looking forward to working with the city to be able to create. The new members of staff have been very easy to work with, although our concern is the city is embarking upon a redesign of the North Huron sewer interceptor that will not take into consideration the new comp plan. I think, Councillor DeMott, you asked the question at the last meeting when their contract was accepted, if they are going to be basing their design on the old, outdated plan or on the new plan that we're in the process of doing. the capacities and the location of the lines will be significantly impacted by the comp plan revision that is now underway. And we're concerned that we're not going to have the ability to make the amendments or to revise the comp plan and have the new North Huron Interceptor plan coincide with that. So we would like to bring it to council's attention that these new lines need to be designed based on the new comp plan and not on an old, outdated plan. The new design would far better serve the city and its citizens as well as the property owners affected by these improvements if the design was based on the new plan. In addition, I would request that the design engineers work with our engineers to be sensitive as to how our development plans coincide with the sewer improvements. Therefore, I would ask the design be postponed until we give the city's engineers the opportunity to meet with our engineering consultants regarding our development and use plans under the new proposed comp plan rather than the old plan. Thank you very much for giving me the time to make that statement. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I saw two other hands. Why don't you come on down? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Dodie Carlson. I live at 10137 Owens Drive in the Countryside Subdivision. And I wanted to come and thank the city for all the work that they have done on the whole fracking issue around Stanley Lake. And I would like to really see them take a little bit stronger stand on the Rocky Flats, if at all possible, even though that's not in their jurisdiction. I'm not here to make a point of fracking is good for or bad for the environment, good for the economy. I am here because I think it is horrible to frack in a super fun cleanup site. I strongly oppose to the drilling around the Rocky Flats Preserve as well as any surrounding area at Stanley Lake and the dog park. I grew up in the hot zone of Arvada and bought my first home in Countryside 41 years ago. I have lived through the shadow of Rocky Flats my entire life. I'm a little nervous, sorry. I've witnessed the protests dating clear back to 1979, the FBI raids, all the news reports, and the class action lawsuit. The site has a long history of controversy on health risks and toxins that are still hidden. And I think any kind of drilling will just escalate all of that controversy. The Superfund cleanup did not include the surrounding areas and anything that they're willing, any area that they were going to be drilling in. The city also has gone to great lengths to protect Stanley Lake. The Women's Creek Reservoir is a good sign of that. It was built just to handle the runoff from Rocky Flats. What's going to happen to some of the groundwater should the drilling leak? Is that all going to go to Women's Creek or not? I really firmly believe that there should be no disruption at all to the underground, and taking the risk of drilling not only to the oil workers but to the surrounding neighbor is just not worth the risk. Rocky Flats is a ghost of bad things done in the past. I say the entire site should rest in peace. Thank you.
All right, I have someone else over here. Ladies, one or two of you.
Hi, I'm Sally Weinstock at 4595 West 107th in the Legacy Ridge community. And I'm here also to give you my thoughts on the proposed fracking. And a couple things. I think we have two positives out of this. One, they showed their hand to us last week. They showed their hand. So we know, even though they've withdrawn their permits, if there's money to be had, they're coming back. So we've got that going for us. Two, we have a newly elected state legislator and executive branch that are more environmentally friendly, I hope. At least that's what many of them ran on. So we've got two positives to go through. And I'm really excited to hear about your new legal defense that you're going to hire. but I fear that it's not enough, because I think that based on what we've seen in Erie and Boulder and Broomfield and Lafayette, these folks take city councils and eat them for lunch, and politicians. And what I've noticed the last 2 years is I've listened to politicians talk about fracking, and I've listened carefully. Most of them cannot come out and say, I'm anti-fracking, or they will release the hounds. They will ensure that they're not reelected. They will come at them with full force and a bunch of money that most of our local and even state politicians can't compete with. So I am concerned that there's not enough, but I think we also have another opportunity. We have 2 councilwomen that are going to be moving on here pretty soon, and that's Emma and Shannon. And you have 2 positions that you, the rest of the council, have an opportunity to look at the candidates that are going to come your way. And I hope and I implore you all to pick some people that have an understanding, that are ready to die on this hill, that are ready to maybe not move on politically and not move on. I don't know how much time are left on Shannon and Emma's positions, but are willing to take those 2 or 3 years or whatever that's left, with not looking forward to having to. Otherwise, what we're going to have is more politicians that are going to say, hey, I'm not against fracking, I just want it to be safe. When what we really need are some people that are going to get in there and dig. And I even, over the weekend, I've been thinking about what would a plan look like for people that we would put in those positions, knowing that they may not move forward, because again, they're going to be coming up against some really tough opponents, some people that are going to just come after them. I mean, and it's going to get ugly. We've seen it. I've seen it. I've watched some activists that they've come after in the press and on social media. I've watched them come after some of our community council people that have tried to be reelected, and it's not nice. It's ugly. So we need some tough people that are going to have tough skin that can get in there. And they're going to need, and so I set down a little plan. Some of the things that I don't know that an attorney specifically will go after, but some folks that are going to follow up on what's going on at the state level, because we've got some laws that are outdated, that have not been able to be updated. And if those folks would follow up with our state legislators, keep on top of them, if not push them towards the kind of legislation that we're going to need to protect our water resources and our land resources that our sister cities up north have not been able to do. They've all lost. And so some of the other things, in addition to following up on the state, I'd like to see them, and as you have indicated that you've begun working with Erie and Lafayette and Boulder and Broomfield, find out what happened. Get their notes. Find out where did they think they went wrong, and make sure we don't waste the time, money, and resources, because those folks are ready for those arguments. Those folks are ready when you say, hey, you're going to contaminate this, and they're going to come back and say, but we're going to be drilling, a million miles underneath it. We're not going to touch your water tables. Or when they come by and they say, well, you're going to lose, what is it now, 400,000 jobs, 40,000 jobs, 40 jobs? Where are those jobs? Are they here in Westminster, or are they in Oklahoma City? Are they geologists, or are they accountants that can find other jobs in other locations? Other questions that I would ask is, also to look for the success around the country. Find the successes around the nation. I don't know that your legal team will do that, but I'm really, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that they're going to be there. But one of the biggest things too for me, and I'm trying to talk fast, is where's that water going to come from? They use water to frack. They're not going to bring it down from Weld County. Is it coming out of Stanley Lake, or is it coming out of the same sources that feeds into Stanley Lake? Are they going to be using that 1% of the water? Is that our water? And then when they say 1%, what do they mean? Is it 1% this year, and then another 1%, another 1%, another 1%? When do we get in trouble there? And most importantly, if you appoint these people, communication is going to be key. And I don't think the website, and I don't think that these meetings are going to cut it. They're going to need maybe door-to-door outreach, coordinate volunteers, reach out to the press, maybe even tents at events. It's going to have to be major. And I'll leave you with one thing. I grew up in the neighborhood next to Flint, Michigan. And in 2017, they had 96,448 people. I'm sorry. Okay. So anyway, let's not be Flint. Thank you. Do you need anything from me?
I have one more. You okay? I have someone over here on the left side.
Name and address. Andrew Thamides, and the address is 11331 West 104th Avenue. So first and foremost, thank you guys for taking up this issue. I'm obviously here about the fracking as well. And I just like to say, thank you for putting the resources of the city behind this. And I sure as hell hope you guys take this as seriously as all the residents in my neighborhood are taking it and the rest of Westminster is. I know my vote for every single one of you is on the line here, depending on how you guys act. And I'm not trying to be overly aggressive, but I just want to make the point that it's very, very serious for our community, for my children's health. I have a baby girl; she's 6 months old, so I'm a daddy now, and I have a whole other lens I'm looking at the world through here. So there's that. Herb, you mentioned the website and information. I think that's great. I applaud any transparency or as much transparency you guys can give us and the rest of the community. With that being said, there's some very basic questions that I think any eighth grader would be asking, first of which, and I don't know why we may not already know this, or if we do, it'd be great to know, is who owns the mineral rights? And if it's the city, which I'm assuming it isn't based on what I'm hearing from you, then it'd be great to know that. And then the next question, obviously, is can we buy those back? And I don't know. This is all way above my head. But those are two basic questions that I would love to see an answer to on the website as soon as possible. And if we're going to spend at least $25,000 of our city's money, which is money very well spent, I hope that attorney can at least give us that information so we can hone in. I'd also like to point out that if you do a little digging on the company that is behind these original permits, they're London listed, but most of the chairman and CEO and most of the folks on the board are all from Colorado. And I don't know, doesn't really mean much, I guess, from a legal standpoint. I'm guessing there's a reason why they list in London and then come here, even though they're based out of Colorado. But I think that's worth noting. And other than that, I would just say, my last statement, this is something I wanted to bring up, which is I'm a little taken aback. When this all happened, I guess everybody was in shock, including you guys. Apparently you had no idea. And that's a question of itself. Why? We're surrounded by cities. And David, I would expect you to be all over this, quite frankly. We're surrounded by cities that are dealing with this issue in and out. Big battles, everybody knows about it for years, right? Okay, so, my question to you guys would be, why haven't we, or why don't you lead, you've been mayor for, I don't know, what, at least for 8 years, at least, if not 3 different settings, or 3 re-elections. Why didn't we guys bring this up? Why didn't you look into it as a possibility? And it's not a blame game here, but I think it's also another question that myself and a lot of people are asking. A little bit of being proactive here, I think would have been great. That being said, we are where we are, and I just hope you guys do the right thing and take this serious. And we'll all be watching, and I'm here as your #1 supporter. Any way I can help, I plan to be involved with the community, organizing, planning meetings. You'll hear from me, and I hope to hear from you and help you guys every way that I can. And thank you so much for taking this seriously, and thank you for your time.
Anyone else in the audience that has any comments that they'd like to bring forward at this time? Yes, ma'am. Come on down.
Good evening. My name is Donna Caleo, 11220 West 102nd Avenue. And I'm here in support of Michelle. With all of the fracking talking going on, talking about coyotes seems to be probably not a big issue to some people. We live in the area that there is a green belt right behind us. We have, you can't, the neighbors have to keep their own pets and be responsible for their pets. If you're going to let your pets run free, then you take that chance of losing your pet to a coyote, raccoon, whatever. Where we have a huge problem that I would ask you to look into is that we have coyotes running that back area all through this community, Lakeview Landing, Countryside. We understood when we bought out here, we're here with the wild animals. That's fine. We'll protect our pets as we can. But when you've got them, they're mangy looking, their hair's falling off, we call animal control.
and animal control's not around to help us out. We have community members. A gentleman killed a raccoon in his backyard that was attacking his dog. Called for animal control. Animal control's not working today. There we have a problem. I need to know when animal control is working. We should be like other cities and have animal control on somebody, at least on call 24/7. So that when there's a dead animal laying in the middle of the street, 100th and Sims last Friday night for 12 hours, well, the community, there was nothing we could do. Thankfully, someone from Stanley Lake came over and picked it up with the shovel. What do we do with it then? What do we do about these birds, these squirrels, these animals, raccoons that have in other places been tested positive for rabies? What do we do when they're dead in our backyard and we call and there's no animal control? We cannot have coyotes that are not afraid of being hazed, because we've tried everything. We've tried hazing them. We've tried, and I got to tell you, you have some great people on animal control. You truly do. And I applaud them for talking to me and giving me ideas. That's very respectful, and I appreciate that. And their hands are tied. But, you know, we can't fire, you know, we can't use a firearm, BB gun, paint gun. We can't use anything to scare them away. And a can with pennies in it isn't cutting it. I don't mind having to take my 2 chihuahuas outside on a leash 24 hours a day. They have to go out every hour because they're little boy dogs and they'll pee if they don't in the house. I don't mind taking them out on leashes in my own backyard. What I do mind is not having animal control here to help us with situations that involve animals that we don't know what to do with. What do you do with a dead raccoon in your backyard? Where do y'all suggest that we pick it up and dump it? If we go dump it up farther west of us, now you're talking about feeding the coyotes that have mange. You know, I'm truly at a loss. We're in our backyard. Coyotes are running that back green belt behind where I live with my pets and my friends and children in my backyard trying to jump my fence. What do I do? Because shaking a can of pennies isn't cutting it. And if I get a BB gun and I shoot the darn coyote, okay, I'm breaking the law. I'm going to get arrested. And then what do I do with the dead body? This sounds like my Italian grandfather talking. You know, it's serious. What do I do with its body? I mean, we've got to have a plan. They're not afraid of us. They're not afraid when you're walking through Stanley Lake on those trails. I have a 77-pound Akita that my husband walks, and these coyotes come walking by him, and they're not afraid. When I walk my dog, I have to take a bat and mace with me. Something has to be done because I work in the veterinarian field, and it's not my nature to hurt animals. And to think that I may have to, at some point, take a bat to a coyote makes me sick to my stomach. Or hurt one that's jumped the fence in my backyard while my friends and their children run into the house. So I would just ask you to, 2 things. One,
Ms. Calero, your time is up. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Do you have anyone else that has not had an opportunity to come forward tonight? Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we'll move on to the next item, report of city officials. Mr. Tripp. Okay, thank you. Council members, does anyone have any comments? Mr. DeMont?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to thank our veterans following this Veterans Day, those who sacrificed for this nation so we can have the liberty, freedom, and a nation where we get to vote who represents us in our government. And so, frankly, so you all can come here and address us tonight. The freedom of speech is one of the most important things I think our veterans fight for, and we should be grateful to them. The second thing I'd like to do tonight is congratulate my colleague, Emma Pinter, who was elected by the people of Adams County to be one of their commissioners. So congratulations. And Shannon Bird, who couldn't be with us tonight, who was elected by the voters to be the representative for HD 35. This election was a history-making election where we saw more women on the election ballots than ever before. More women were elected to serve in the U.S. Congress than ever before, including the youngest woman, the first Korean American woman, the first Muslim woman, and the first Native American woman. History has had many brave women who have paved the way for this generations of female leaders. Women like Westminster's own Linda Charrington, who we lost recently. Many children knew Linda as the history lady, that she would teach lessons at the historic Bulls Museum in Westminster on 72nd Avenue. Linda was a near lifelong resident of the city of Westminster, making its history the object of research since 1952. She has been involved in the Westminster Historical Society since 1962, serving on the board as president and vice president. Linda has been serving on the City of Westminster Historic Landmark Board since 2004. She was awarded the Mary Chancho Award for Outstanding Service as a volunteer in 2006. She was an honoree as our annual hometown Christmas tree lighting in 2015. Has been actively serving the community of Westminster and our Westminster's History 101 teacher for several years and giving school lectures to students of Westminster Public Schools. Linda Charrington has been consistently publishing the monthly newsletter of the Westminster Historical Society, speaking from its first publication to its present. She has been instrumental in placing local buildings on National Register of Historic Places, erecting the historic statue honoring Jim Baker and Westminster volunteer firemen. She has authored 6 books in Westminster history, as well as being quoted in books written by local authors. And then lastly, she had a local park at Bradburn Village named in her honor. If you want to see the legacy, you have to also look no further than her 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. I think that she was an asset to the city. It was a great loss in my mind. I was lucky enough to call her friend, and I wanted to make sure that we each had time to honor her for all her contributions to the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Seitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilor DeMont, for highlighting Ms. Charrington's service. Today I have to just also echo that today is a day that makes us think about service in general. Again, I'd like to thank all of the members of the Westminster staff that are veterans for their service. I know there are some gentlemen here tonight, or at least one gentleman here tonight who is a veteran. I also want to thank members of our communities who served in the armed services, and then also members of my family, including my father and my grandfather and my brother-in-law. I focused on service this last week. I was at the National League of Cities. There were 3,800 different elected officials from all across the United States that come together to try to learn about the best ways to serve their communities and to be stewards. And it was wonderful because it didn't matter if the community was 6,000 people or Los Angeles itself. We are all dealing with very similar issues. Homelessness and the continuum of care, infrastructure, how do we finance it, how do we get community engagement and buy-in, and how do we outreach to our community, affordable housing solutions, economic development that has equity at its core. All of these issues were talked about with some of the best minds, I think, in local government, teaching classes and giving tours. And I came back inspired because not only do I work with people who really care about this community and want to find answers for all of these issues, but that Westminster stands apart. We are already doing so many things that are listed as best practices. So I did want to also thank city staff. I think all of you here tonight also are part of that spectrum of stewardship and service. Thank you for coming and voicing your concerns, whether it's about coyotes in your backyard or it's about Rocky Flats and fracking underneath our water supply. You help us do a better job by being involved, and it's very important that we had you here tonight. So thank you. I also want to congratulate my colleague, Emma Pinter. She has been a superb city councilor, and I am very sad to lose her, but I am glad that she will have an opportunity to expand her service and leadership My colleague Shannon Bird is not here, but she will also do an amazing job advocating for this state at the State House. I have an invitation to everybody here listening. We're going to have 2 vacancies. And so really consider, do you want to expand your reach? Do you want to give back to this community in a way that you're up at this dais making these decisions and trying to look for what the best path for this city is into the future? If you do, we're going to be having a vacancy, so consider applying. While I was in Los Angeles, obviously they had their own catastrophes happen. Multiple fires, both in Los Angeles and Ventura counties, and then further north. Also a shooting, another mass shooting. It is at times like that you really want to say thank you to first responders. It was actually the firefighters at the Thousand Oaks shootings that were on the scene very early on, in addition to an officer who lost his life. So I want to say again, thank you to the first responders in here. I want to make sure no one leaves this room thinking there's any question about the amount of commitment that the city staff and the city council has to protecting our public health and the safety and the quality of life of our community. I know that our staff will do everything in their power, and we as a council will give them every tool they need to make sure that we protect the residents of Westminster. And so please know that we want to partner with you. We will continue to communicate with you. I apologize, by being out of town, I was not as responsive to my emails, but I appreciated every single one of you emailing concerned about this issue. You should know that this council has as a high priority in our strategic plan energy efficiency, natural resource conservation, and environmental stewardship. This is an issue that is really a core value for the city, and we will continue to be leaders in this area with your help. Thank you for all coming out tonight.
Yeah, I'll just briefly say, because we have been here for a couple hours and we haven't started our meeting yet. Thank you to everyone who came out this evening. It's really empowering to hear from our community. I have to agree with my colleagues, and thank you for your kind remarks. I will be here for a couple more months, so don't get too excited. As many of you mentioned, we are building a city for the long haul. Our strategic planning, whether it was the comprehensive land use planning that was mentioned or other planning that the city does, we're hoping to build a city for generations. And that means preserving our wild and natural resources, as well as preserving our community. And so as we face these challenges, I just want to thank all of you. I myself had knee surgery on Thursday, and so I was a little delayed in getting emails back to people as well, because I didn't want to write you back while I was too high. But, you know, I'm doing much better now. So thank you so much for all of you who took the time to send in public comments, to email us, to show up here tonight. Everything we do together. And I want to just say that I'm really impressed with the speedy response of staff, as well as the speedy response for the community. So thank you very much.
Just one last reminder, watch the website. Be cautious of social media that's not coming from the city. We will get you information as fast as we can. We are still trying to uncover some of the things that we don't have answers to, and that is one of the reasons that on the agenda tonight we're getting additional help, but staff is working this. They have been on it since then. They have worked through the weekend trying to find out some of the stuff. Some of it is historical data that we don't have, and we are trying to resurrect that through land titles as to who owns what, who doesn't own what. But I will tell you, we are trying to uncover it as fast as we can. This is not something that's going to happen in 15 minutes. I know it's hard to be patient, but as fast as we get the information, it will be made public to you, unless there's something we're not allowed to give you because of potential lawsuits or litigation. But even that will be made public as soon as we can. I know that's not going to qualm the concerns you have, but we all are sitting here trying to figure out ways to battle this issue. I know it was pointed out that this is not a local group. They are managed from England, but they do have an office here locally, and that is in the Denver area. We have already been in contact with them. That's how we found out about the permits being withdrawn.
So we have staff, and we have the staff members, our outside support. We're doing everything we can to learn as much as we can and meeting with as many groups as we can, as fast as we can. But everything's going to take a little bit of time. We have to understand what we can do, and more importantly, what we can't do. One of the things I'll make it very clear, we do not issue the permits, contrary to all the social media that says that we were issuing permits. We don't issue the permits. Those are listed through the state. But we are doing everything we can. We do have some land use regulations already in place that help us with certain parts of this. But as we review those, we're finding we probably need to do some changes. We'll make those happen as soon as we can. So again, please watch the website. Be very careful about picking up on social media. And be even more careful about repeating incorrect, inaccurate information. That just makes it harder for us to stop the rumor mills. Bear with us. We're doing everything we can as fast as we can. All right, moving on. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. This is a group of routine matters to be acted on with a single motion. We have already reviewed these as a city council in the pre-meeting. I was not asked by any council member to have any item reviewed. So Mr. DeMont, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move that we pass, move that city council adopt consent agenda items 8A through 8D.
Ms. Penter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. And if you will, please. Go ahead and vote with your license. And the motion passes on a 4-0 vote. Next item up is Council's Bill number 46 on first reading. Ms. Seitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to pass Councilor's Bill number 46 on first reading, authorizing the city manager to enter into annual leases of certain water rights to agricultural users for a period of 5 years.
Ms. Penter?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by any member of the council? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote. Ms. Parker?
Atchison.
Yes.
DeMott.
Yes.
Pinter.
Yes.
Seitz.
Yes.
Motion carries on a 4-0 vote. Next item up is the recommendation to the city manager to determine public interest on a utilization negotiated rates for library materials. Ms. Pinter?
Yes, move based on the recommendation of the city manager to determine that the public interest will be best served by utilizing negotiating rates for the purchase of library materials and electronic resources for the Westminster Public Libraries for a grand total not to exceed $810,000 for 2019 from the vendors Baker and Taylor, nor to exceed $350,000 from Midwest Tapes, not to exceed $200,000 from Colorado Library Consortium, not to exceed $80,000 to Overdrive, not to exceed $80,000, and Sengay Gale, not to exceed $100,000.
Ms. Seitz?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by council on this item? Ms. Pinter?
Yeah, just a comment that I'm always excited to see this item come through because this is a nice opportunity to refresh our libraries and the materials available. As I have an 11-year-old daughter who's really in love with graphic novels, the fact that you can keep current materials that are appropriate for 10, 11-year-olds, like make our house very happy. Thank you.
Other comments by council? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a vote with your light, if you would, please. And the motion carries on a 4-0 vote. Next item up is a ratification of consulting services for computer-aided design dispatch. Ms. Seitz?
Thank you. I move to ratify the contract for consulting services in the selection of a computer-aided dispatch mobile computer records management system with Winborn Consulting, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $115,500, which includes payments already made in the amount of $11,550 for services rendered to date.
We need a second on the motion. Council?
Yes, sir, second.
Ms. Pinter, thank you. Second. Is there any discussion by council on this item? If not, this is also a vote with your button, please. And this motion also carries on a 4-0 vote. Next item is move, based on the recommendation of the city manager, find a public interest best served by a contract negotiation with Daniel M. Minzer.
Yes, I move based on the recommendation of the city manager to find the public interest will be best served by a negotiated contract with Daniel M. Minzer, LLC, for work related to Westminster Station area development projects for transactional real estate matters on an as-needed basis in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Mr. DeMont?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Again, this will be a vote with your lights, please. Okay, motion is also carried on a 4-0 vote. Next item is a recommendation by the city manager to find the public interest served of our negotiated contract with Philip D. Barber. Ms. Sykes?
Thank you. I move based on the recommendation of the city manager to find that the public interest will be best served by a negotiated contract with Philip D. Barber, PC, for work related to oil and gas matters on an as-needed basis in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Ms. Pinter?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any other comments from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just really quickly, I know that we've gone over this, and I know that you're going to work really hard to work regionally with our partners to make sure that we are doing this as collaboratively as possible, seeing that we can learn from what Thornton has gone through, Commerce City, Erie, Broomfield, many of our neighbors. But with this number, because of the large scope of public lands owned by the City of Westminster, if you do run into a cost barrier, please come back. Come back quickly.
Absolutely, we'd bring back another contract as needed.
Thank you.
Any other comments by council? Not, this again is a vote with your lights, please. And this motion also carries a 4-0 vote. Moving on to the next item, we have item 11A.
Mr. Mayor, I believe we're going to move to table item 11A. Continue. Okay. So I would like to move to continue item 11A till November 26th.
We have a motion to continue this hearing until a date certain of November 26th. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and this is a voice vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion is carried. I heard no opposition.
Oh, we still did buttons.
That's fine. Voice vote's all we required. All right, the next item up is we have 3 executive sessions left and 1 presentation. So we do is an executive session. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the open business we have for tonight. Thank you very much for coming. And ladies and gentlemen, please watch the website. Thank you very much and have a good evening.